Hello. I'm not going to say anything unless somebody jumps on. Kirk.
Hello.
Hello. What's up?
Not much. It's just been an interesting couple days seeing what's been happening in Mississippi.
What's been happening in Mississippi?
I thought I told you already that it's been snowing for the first time in like 100 years.
Mmm. Wow.
I don't know if this is a sign from God, but
Well, everything's a sign from God, but snowing in Mississippi.
well, I mean like a sign for something specific. I mean everything comes from God, but not everything has equal metaphysical. I don't think everything has equal metaphysical significance.
Yes, and generally, most people who try to interpret signs from God are fools. Uh, but such things do happen. 2.7 inches. Uh, at least 8 inches fell in New Orleans, where no snow had accumulated since 2009. It broke a previous record of 2.7 inches, according to the National Weather Service.
How many inches did he say is in New Orleans?
8 inches.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Hmm. It confirmed either measurement would beat the previous Jackson County record for 5 inches set on February 13th, 2010. I have no idea where Jackson County is.
I think that's more toward. I don't know exactly. I'm pretty sure that's more toward central Mississippi.
I wouldn't know. I can hardly find Mississippi on a map. So I'm guessing you've not been going to class.
Uh, no. I'm gonna. I mean, next Monday I will, but I think the snow's gonna clear up soon. But it's been interesting seeing this, and if we ever get if I ever, I mean, just the only other time I remember is getting a lot of snow was when I was visiting New York when I was like 6 or 7 on on a trip, a field trip with my dad.
Mm. Yeah, when the year I was in Jerusalem, it snowed, and I was part of the Los Angeles contingent, and we went out and played in the snow. And the guys from New York were like, "What is wrong with you?" We're like, "It's snow."
I mean, even if you're from New York, I don't see what the problem with playing in snow would be.
Yeah, but they didn't see why we were so excited.
Some people are party poopers.
Eh.
So what's been going on with you?
Mostly same old, same old. We went and saw the Dead Sea Scrolls on Sunday. Um,
What two schools did you see?
so there was trying to think what the highlights were. There was one fragment from um 4Q, which was 4Q MMT. So 4Q MMT is a composite document made from many fragments of many copies of this previously unknown document. So one of the fragments was there. There were there was uh, 10 Commandments. Um, there were some Psalms, including some previously unknown Psalms. Um, yeah, those were the big things. There was, I think it was the 10 Commandments, which had the Tetragrammaton in Paleo Hebrew, while the rest of it was in Hebrew. Um, there were some documents in Aramaic, sectarian documents. Yeah, that was
What
the
I
highlight.
was gonna ask, what was on the 4Q MMT document?
So for QMMT, I'm so glad you asked. It's one of my favorite documents to reference. I would say after the Proto-Masoretic texts that were found, Proto-Masoretic texts meaning versions of things from the Masoretic, which is the traditional Hebrew Bible of the Jews. Um, they so the most important single thing was the Proto-Masoretic texts, because they showed, and there's been this whole controversy on Twitter with Alex O'Connor and about some Christian evangelists going on Joe Rogan about that. So that was the most, that is number one. Number two would be 4QMMT. And what 4QMMT is, the actual name of the document is Miktsat Ma'aseh HaTorah, which means some of the works of the law. And it's a letter from the leader of the Qumran community, which we believe to be Essenes, to the leader of the temple in Jerusalem, which was controlled by the Sadducees at the time. And the significance of the document is that the details of the arguments are very Pharisaic. So it helps contextualize what the entirety of the discussion between the various factions at that time in Jerusalem were, because we see that an Essene is writing to a Sadducee and speaking in Pharisaic terms. And that has really changed how Christians view themselves. Honestly, so when I was in yeshiva and I would study Talmud, and it would talk about the temple period, I always assumed that there was some level of anachronism in how the heretics mentioned in the Talmud would be so Pharisaic, and which I didn't fault at all, right? If you're writing hundreds of years afterwards, your understanding of the history can have some level of anachronism in it. That doesn't make you like wrong or anything like that. It just makes you human. But really, what the sectarian documents, especially for QMMT, show is that there was a large that that everybody was speaking in this particular way. Neil,
Hey, Jacob. It's been a
hey,
while. So,
it
and
has been a while.
I had the time and number of things. My whole schedule this week has been off kilter because New Orleans had its biggest snowfall in 130 years, and we don't
We
know
were
how to deal with the
just
snow.
talking
Yeah,
about that. Yeah.
Oh, a fellow
yeah,
Southerner.
yeah. Sorry, keep going. Didn't
No,
mean to interrupt.
that was. I mean, I was just explaining what 4QMMT it was, and I do that a lot on this channel. So, and there's Andrew. I have to get a new mouse. The guy who organized the trip to see the Dead Sea Scrolls at the Reagan Library, because Andrew's a huge fan of Ronald Reagan. I'm joking.
I'm a huge fan of Ronald Reagan. Well, I won't say huge, but
War
I'm a
on
pretty big
drugs.
fan.
War on drugs. I am siding with drugs.
I remember I took a basic public speaking class in high school, and I gave the very first speech in that class, and I got up in front of the class and I spoke eloquently about why we should legalize all drugs. And after the speech, a particular member of the class came up to me. He's like, my uncle died because of heroin, or something like that. And he was pissed. He was pissed. And yeah.
Well, I have 2 doses of Narcan in my backpack right over there. So I would have been able to help if they had Narcan. I don't think they had Narcan back then.
This is your brain on drugs.
That looks like
This
cake.
bit here. Mm-hmm.
That does
It's
not
cooked.
look like a brain.
It's cooked.
So are you still a libertarian, Neil?
I just don't care.
Less
about
so. In regard to certain things, I still am quite libertarian-esque. In that I would rather people choose the good from within versus forcibly imposed.
Hell
Let's put it
yeah,
that way.
brother.
Yeah.
Oh, did you guys hear that that Zizek quote that's going around about how authoritarian? Okay, I'm going to talk Zizek just as soon as I point out. In my high school, you knew who sold drugs by whether or not they wore a Dare shirt, because anybody wearing a Dare shirt was the person who was selling the drugs, because why else would you wear a Dare shirt unless you were selling drugs? Okay, so the Zizek quote.
But before you start talking Zizek, you have to let the saliva well up in your mouth for some period of time. That's the rule with Zizek.
Yeah, I don't do much of a Zizek impression. Anyway, so he says, so there's the parent who tells you have to go visit your grandmother because it's your duty. And there's the parent who says, I'm not going to make you go visit your grandmother, but think about how much she loves you and make the decision yourself. And he talks about how much more authoritarian it is to say to the kid, don't you love your grandmother? Not only do you have to go visit your grandmother, but you have to actually like it, right? In some aspects, it is much more libertarian to like just tell people, okay, it's So Luke says it's an attempted colonization of their inner world.
But that's what good parents attempt to do.
Colonize.
Good parents attempt to colonize their children with good values, right? Values that'll make them successful throughout their life.
Yes, but that's okay. So the difference between permissive parenting, there's permissive parenting, there's authoritarian parenting, and there's authoritative parenting. Authoritarian permissive parenting is you let the kid do whatever the kid wants, and that will stunt your child's growth. It will confuse the poor child, and it's a horrible thing to do to a child. There's authoritarian parenting, which is you will do what I say because I said it, right? And then there's authoritative parenting, which is when you become an authority in your child's life. And what is an authority? An authority is someone you trust to give you information, right? So an authoritative parent builds trust so that a child understands, hey, when I don't know how to do something and I ask my parents, it works well for me, right? My parents are a good source of information for me to uh, use as an authority in my life. And so, yeah, I took a whole semester's class and all I learned was that one thing.
I see. And so it'd be like, to use a philosophical analogy, the permissive parenting would be like Rousseau, the authoritarian parent would be like Hobbes, and then the authoritative parent would be like Locke.
I wouldn't know. All I know is
Actually,
Rousseau
this
was a
point
horrible
from
person.
this point from Young God's a good one, and anyone who has children knows that once they get to a certain point, the right posture is to negotiate. Meaning, if let's say my daughter is asking for something that's beyond the typical or different than the typical, I actually allow her to, let's say, logically defend why she would like to do that thing. And sometimes she's successful. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. Okay. So you have the law, but then you also have, let's say, a jurisdictional process within that, or on the edges of that, or what's the right word for that? Yeah, court system.
When you're dealing with adolescents, you're trying to help them practice to become adults. And like, if you're always telling them what to do, you're not helping them practice to become adults. Yeah. Or as Jan God put it, I am going to have to replace this stupid mouse. I guess transitioning into adulthood requires diplomacy. So what have you been up to, Neil, on that other channel?
Variety of things. So I actually started a Jacob list based on the thing that you sent me over Discord yesterday, day before. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I've felt actually today and yesterday, for whatever reason, the last few days I haven't felt this, but I would say prior to the last few days, I felt a malaise in the spirit of TLC. It feels like to some extent we've exhausted all the talking points. We've checked all the boxes. A lot of recycled ideas. I haven't felt too inspired recently, but that's been different today. Actually, I've got like 3 or 4 different things I could go down. But anyway, part of that for me, I think, is because I've personally found what I'm looking for. Like I have my Dunbar number of people. I already have people in my life because of this space that I talk to regularly, both online and offline, that if I had more time, I would definitely talk to those people more. So I'm not really searching for like more friends per se. So that's part of it. And then the other part of it is like maybe TLC is totally fine being a clearinghouse for more physically embodied tradition. Let's put it that way, whatever those traditions are. And we're the clearinghouse to get people there. But then the other half of that is like, okay, if it is a clearinghouse, then clearly there's some within that clearinghouse. You seem to be one of them. I seem to be one of them because I'm stuck here. There are some within the clearinghouse that then have a responsibility to clear, to actually move the transactions forward in some capacity, right? So what is, so our question, you said what we need is leadership and responsibility. And I'm like, look at, I'm a fearless leader over here. Look how many hairs are on my chest ready to, yeah. Anyway, so what is our responsibility? That's my silly way of asking. What What is our responsibility in this space? And what are you doing in this space other than making friends? Because I think you're making friends.
Well, I'm building a community. And
I'm building a
Rabbi.
community.
No, seriously, I am.
I know.
What is far more important to me than what happens on this channel or even on my Discord is the fact that I have Tayo's shoes over there and David's shoes over there, both of which they left.
I have Chad's head right here.
There
This is
you
Chad's
go.
head.
There
Or
you
this
go.
side of Chad's head. Wait. No, wait. It's there you go.
No, but like seriously, or that we did go to the Dead Sea Scrolls last Sunday, or me and two of the guys go to the gym every week, right? Together. Like it's a matter of building, of having a structure that you believe works, that allows it to grow, right? And so I hear what you're saying about clearinghouse. I always put it more in terms of traffic direction, right? I don't want people bumping into each other. That's what I always thought organization was for, right? You can drive, everybody can drive on the right side of the street, or everyone can drive on the left side of the street, but you have to pick one and you have to drive that, right? And that's what I think calls for more organization. And that's so must have been like 5 years ago. Sam and I think some other people, I forget who exactly it was, but Sam Tiedemann was definitely one of the people who wanted to make some sort of organization for TLC. And at the time, I said, it's too, we don't need it yet, right? Because I don't know if you've ever started a business, but when you start a business, you don't incorporate the business and then go into business. You start the business, and once you need the vehicle, like you need the EIN number to open a bank account, that's when you go get your EIN number, right? Because if you went and got an EIN number for every business you were thinking about starting, I would have a lot of EIN numbers by now, right? Anyway, so and for me, like, when for a long time in this little corner, I was just one of the people, and I was fine with that. And then there started to be a necessity for a Discord server for people who got kicked off BOM. That's when I started my Discord server. It was a refugee Discord server for people who had gotten kicked off BOM. And things evolved. My channel ended up evolving from, like, I was just teaching biblical Hebrew. I mean, you can go and see my first things, my first videos. So to some extent, I have to say, you have to be flexible in what you're willing to do and what you're not willing to do. I mean, I thought the whole thing yesterday with David and his play was, I felt kind of like, this is what gets under my skin, which is like David's play. Did you watch it?
Most of it.
Okay.
Not all of it yet.
So David's play, it was like, well, this isn't the type of thing that should go on my channel, right? Because it's not my channel. It's not the type of thing that goes on my channel, right? But everybody who was involved, like, you had most of Grail Country's admins and you had PBK, and it was like, okay, if I don't let this on my channel, they're probably going to stream it, right? And they did. And so I have always tried to have clear boundaries, but a clear boundary is something that is permeable, right? And so, yeah, I mean, you're asking me what I'm doing, and what I'm doing, like, is helping build community here.
We certainly need more of
But
that.
who? I guess let me dig into that a little bit. In that, what is the community for? Or I think the difference between your approach and mine, and I'll put it this way, is that if I help people build friendships and connections, and that's all it is, and it's not, moved. People create their own teloses. I'm not so worried about us having a top-down imposed telos, and I think that's the difference. Is that, like, I have plenty of purpose in my life. I have an overabundance of purpose, but one purpose I didn't have, or it's not even a purpose, but one gap that was missing, were individuals of similar values with different skills, talents, abilities, insights that I could still appreciate, I could resonate with. I couldn't find those, or I couldn't create those for myself. So I guess in building a community, are we building a community for a specific purpose, or is it community for the sake of community? And then if it's community for the sake of community, is it really let's say, the mental and spiritual health of the individuals within that community that is what we care about? That's
Okay.
what I'm curious about. Yeah.
So that is definitely subordinate, but this is the background to my channel, right? And it's the tetragram. And the tetragram is recursively ineffable, right? Not only is, like, it is a reference. Why do I write G-D, right? When everybody knows, when I write capital G-D, I'm talking about God, right? How is that different than me just writing God? And the fact is that, I mean, ultimately, I hope, not that I actually live it all the time, but my channel is a lot more, my channel is where my faith is best exemplified. Is, okay, I'm here to do the two important things: love God and love my fellow man, right? Like, Jesus was quoting someone. Like, Mark 12 is, like, when I read it, one of the two things, my jaw was open. There it is. How do Christians get this wrong? But and so, like, there's the highest thing, which is the tetragram, and then there's the twin commandments: V'ahavta re'echa kamocha, and V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha b'chol nafshecha u'chol modecha. I can't believe I'm blanking on that one. But b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'chol modecha. Sorry. Right. So, yeah, for me, for example, starting Fountain of Comfort, which I hope will eventually be a thing, which is because I think we certainly have a lot of need for mental health. Like, if you're actually paying attention to the people here, you will notice there are a lot of people formerly with substance abuse problems, and there are a lot of people with mental health issues. And obviously Jordan Peterson's whole thing is mental health.
I think a more common commonality is extremely high in openness, high in or low in agreeableness. I think that's a much more common commonality, because people who are high in openness and agreeable, they tend to go into the arts. They find people, gentle spaces, let's say, but they're able to find other people. people who are lower in openness and higher in disagreeability, typically more masculine spaces, more fundamentalist spaces, again, they are able to find community because it's a more narrow subset. But it's that combination of high openness, low agreeability that I think is the unique psychological profile of TLC.
Oh yeah, I would agree with that, and I hope I wasn't saying that mental illness is what's keeping us together.
But no. But I will say there, because of that low agreeableness and that high in openness, that high in openness means they find it difficult to find friends because they're so interested in so many things that few people can really follow those people in. Like this is my problem even within TLC, is like I want to talk about things that only a small subset of people within the TLC are interested in. But then the low, so you have kind of the worst of both worlds. You have high in openness, which means there's very few people that actually fall into that category that can follow the full range of things that you're interested in, or even part of the range. And then the disagreeability is like, okay, the small subset of people that can actually follow the things, most of them are going to find you annoying and hurtful and bothersome. It's like, okay, I don't actually need to be. And so that combination is the crockpot of TLC. And the reason that TLC, I think, succeeds is that when we inevitably piss each other off because of that low disagreeableness, it's not like, oh, I have to see you around town all the time. It's just like I get out of that channel or that hair or whatever, it's very easy to distance in a virtual space,
See, okay, I have to disagree with that last part. So I think you're definitely right in terms of openness and I would say low in politeness, not necessarily disagreeability, but part of it is just being tired of the crazy amounts of compassion, which turns into not compassion. But these are things we have in common. But when you look around, like, so for me, when when someone leaves my Discord, I will try to message them, find out what's going on with them, right? And oftentimes they've left, they're hurt, there's a problem, there's something going on, and that's a matter of actually caring about the people around you, which is what bothers me about so much of TLC. Which it's funny, it's TLC because TLC is supposedly tender loving care, and I see very few people actually taking care of each other, right? And that's one of the things that makes me, okay, I think I'm more Jordan Peterson sphere than TLC. But in looking at the members of this community, what do people need? Not what defines us as who we are, but okay, I've made all these people who I consider friends. If I know your name and I'm going to miss you, right? And I'm quoting Jesus a lot, right? But like, those who want to lead needs to serve, right? And so the question is, what is the service that the people need? And that's why I went with Fountain of Comfort, right? And frankly, if somebody had stepped up with a better idea, or someone does step up with a better idea, Sartori's idea of the trade school, like Bible trade school, I'm a huge fan. I support it as much as I can, right? But all of that is in question and service of, okay, what do we actually need as a community, right? And my problem generally has been we don't have leaders in terms of people who are willing to serve. And so like coming online, meeting some people, getting mad and leaving, like that's really dysfunctional, Like that's really, really dysfunctional.
So disregard the leader word for a moment. Let's bring that down to a smaller principality, smaller level. So what does it mean to be a mentor in this space? Because I think that's where the rubber meets the road. In that, because in my mind, a mentorship is a one-on-one thing, and that's a lot easier than herding the cats in, 15, 20, 30, 40 people. Because I guess where I think this space can and should help is in the young men and women who have lost, I should say, have never found adequate social skills, have never found typically intelligent young men and women who are asking the right questions, but do not have in-person community to voice and process those questions. And it's scary to go online for the first time and speak what you genuinely think, unless you're used to doing that, like you and I are used to doing that. That's very scary the first time you do it. And now we have the Discords and we have other forums but as I see it, I think our responsibility on the individual basis is something like building confidence and social capability within and among the people that we're serving. I think that's the simplest thing that we can and should do. Yeah, what do you think about that?
So two things. One, I think it really goes back to what we were talking about before about authority, right? What is an authority? It's someone who you can trust to have information, and actually in Vervaeke terms, really you can trust to have wisdom. Where he constantly says, where do you find wisdom, right? And so, I mean, I would say first thing is you want to, as much as possible, be an authority or point to authorities, right? Which is another thing. If you've ever been on my Discord, it's very clear. There's a very clear hierarchy, right? There's rank, right?
That might be why I've never been on your Discord. I got enough hierarchy in my real life. Go ahead.
Well, that's part of the good thing. Like Catholics and Eastern Orthodox, frankly, like I feel like Protestantism is just dying and too many people aren't paying attention, but that's beside the point. The second thing is, one of my rules has always been I spend more time talking to people off my channel than I do on my channel. I spend way more time individually talking to people off my channel than I do on my channel. Private conversations, one-on-one. And that, like, and frankly, like Andrew knows, my whole thing with the Los Angeles crew that we have is I love when the Los Angeles crew does things without me, right? If it's not necessary for me to be there, right? And if let's say the entirety of the Los Angeles crew suddenly decided they don't like Jacob anymore, they would still have each other, right? I don't imagine that ever happening, but let's say I ended up to be some horrible person, right? Which you never know. But and everybody's like, wow, Jacob is a horrible person. The Los Angeles crew would still be the Los Angeles crew, I hope. And like, there's 2 book clubs in Los Angeles that I have nothing to do with, between the various, and like they're going surfing and they're going all kinds of places with each other, right? Like, and again, that goes back to what Vervaeke says about what do you want to be there when you're not, right? Like, if I were to disappear, things would not be the exact same, but I can't imagine that the Los Angeles crew would suddenly dissolve into nothing. Right? And that's part of at least the Los Angeles crew, also my Discord to some extent, you know. And when we were talking about measures, my number one measure is baby pictures. When people send me baby pictures, especially from the hospital, that's like cha-ching, right? Like baby pictures. That's like once you have a baby, then you're a human being. Until you have a baby, don't know about that.
All right, Andrew, get on it.
Trust me, I have been prodding him. Trust me. You mentioned a Jacob list. What is a Jacob list?
No. So a lot of people in the corner do absolutely zero preparation in talking to anyone. And when I get thoughts about a specific thing, or I'm like, oh, this would be good to bring up with that person, I have files. I work for a 3-letter agency, and I keep files on Yon God, and I keep files on Andrew. And no, I'm just kidding. I don't have an Andrew file.
What about me?
Not yet. But I only started my Jacob file like 3 days ago because I can't keep track of my mind all the things that I want to talk to certain individual people about. So, you know, I can't memorize the Iliad anymore. You know, I've offshored my memory to a server farm in Bangladesh. And
okay.
No, I'm just kidding.
I
It's
don't have any files. Like when I want to talk to someone about something, I usually DM them.
Yeah. No, but I'd rather. Well, I think that's probably the difference between us is that there are many differences, I'm sure, but one is that I have my worst interactions over the course of my life are, this is not universally the case, but most are in text over instead of face to face. Like if it's something face to face, goes fine. It's great. So I'd match, and also I have, maybe this is just me, but I have a better ability to take multiple ideas and multiple thoughts and combine them in a way that makes verbal sense when I'm actually talking to someone in synchronous, not asynchronous communication, direct. Yeah. Anyway. So
this is definitely true. Like voice chat. By the way, I have to point out to people, Discord does have video chat, and I use it regularly, and I highly recommend people actually use it regularly, right? I've kind of like lately my just chatting streams, I haven't been doing them nearly as much as I used to, but like just haven't had as many people coming on, and I'm looking at my numbers, and my numbers haven't really gone down. Lots of people still watch, but like I was wondering like why, like, and then I realized, oh, one of the things I do with people tends to be to encourage them to get off the internet. So that's one thing. But another thing is like I have a good amount of private discussions with people, just, you know, one-on-one. And I think that's incredibly important. Like if you're just lurking, I'm glad to have you. You're welcome. And that's part of what this discussion is for. But, and frankly, another thing that I've also done is, you know, I try to put people into contact with each other, right? So that it's not just me. It's not just about me and what I'm, you know, saying or who I'm talking about. Yeah.
But by doing that, you are inadvertently, perhaps advertently, giving up control over the telos of what people should be aiming for. because then they're aiming for their own telos versus a centralized fountain of telos.
Oh yeah. See, this is the thing that always got me. Like I get accused of being controlling a lot, and it's like it always falls flat on me.
I don't
I
think
am
that's.
the
I'm not.
least controlling person.
Well, let me clarify. So, I do not think you're controlling, but yet you seem to be frustrated by a lack of control. You know, so that's the discrepancy that I see. I don't get frustrated by something I don't expect in the first place from an online community, you know?
Oh, okay. I am not frustrated by a lack of control. I do get frustrated by a lack of order. Right? It like for me, things unnecessarily clashing with each other, right? That's like, okay, why are people crashing into each other? The and that definitely frustrates me, right? Um that's not a matter of control. That's not a matter of like yeah, this disorder, and that doesn't. I get frustrated by disorder. I don't get frustrated by lack of control. Hierarchy is necessary, right? And I really dislike when there is a hierarchy and people say that there isn't, because I think that's a sin against the Holy Spirit and unforgivable. And when people when lack of hierarchy is causing problems, and like people falling through the cracks, or ridiculous wastes of resources or things like that, yeah, that bothers me.
Can you give
Could
me
I,
a specific... Go ahead, Kirk.
I was gonna ask. Could I ask a slightly tangential question, Jacob?
How tangential? What's the question?
It's a little tangential. I was
So maybe we'll talk later. Go ahead, Neil.
Well, I was going to ask a specific example that could have been corrected with an obvious hierarchy. Yeah.
So the two things I always point to was Joey leaving BOM and nobody taking responsibility for that, and Ryan deciding that he just doesn't have the time to maintain this lowcorner.com, and us not taking responsibility for that. Both of those were important, were things that made me go, there's something really going wrong here.
Where I don't disagree with you on either of those two cases. However, I suspect where I do disagree with you is, one of the things I get blasted a lot in the corner, not really blasted, but most people that I found in the corner tend to disagree with me on this, is I genuinely believe in the free market. And the reason for that is I believe in evolutionary principles. I believe in the capacity for the needs of individuals to be solved by the market to come up with the best solution, bottom up versus top down. And so both of these things, like this little corner disappearing and the abdication of responsibility from Bridges of Meaning, I see them both in that vein. And that I don't think you would have. There's probably about 10 discords now. Yours is among them, but there's probably about 10 discords now that people float in between. And some are more popular than others. But like, for example, there's been a lot of Discord chatting happening on Grim Grizz's Discord the last month or so. It's been great. And yeah, so in some ways, I think that decentralization is that response to the abdication from Bridges of Meaning, because what it has allowed is, let's say, smaller players to have their own ecosystems and cultures that emerge. it's created a diversity of like different bars might be one way of thinking about it. We have a bar with a certain vibe over here. It's not that you can't talk about certain topics in that bar. It's got a slightly different, spirit than the bar over here. Now this little corner of the internet site, I agree, it's frustrating. I strongly suspect, based on your last just chatting, but I strongly suspect that the corner will innovate, and probably within the space of a year, which is a very short amount of time when you really think about it. And I also strongly suspect that whatever innovation comes about will actually be better than this little corner of the internet site was last year. And sometimes, until something's destroyed, you don't get improved innovation until the need really asserts itself. And so we'll see. Like, we could have a little friendly bet if we don't have a better replacement by the end of 2025. But I bet we do by the end of this year.
Well, we'll see what exactly happens. Frankly, like it's not something I've thought about. I have faith that things will work out just fine eventually, but that's a matter of faith, right? And the question becomes, what is my responsibility in helping to make things actually be better or not, right?
Sure.
And like there's a degree of nihilism that I'm kind of detecting behind your thing of like, oh, well, whatever happens, it'll be fine. And it's like, I don't believe that. I believe that if we do not step up and do our responsibility, and frankly, I've been trying as much as possible to do my responsibility, right? Of making sure things are fine, right? Like the Serenity Prayer has been incredibly good as guidance for me for a long time, but even more clearly recently, right? God, give me the strength to change the things that I can, the grace to accept the things that I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And the discernment to know the difference.
Yeah, right. So like the question becomes, I mean, I in a very real sense, I have moved away from TLC. In many ways, I have moved away. Now, I am not the type of person who's here today and gone tomorrow. I'm not the type of person that, we're friends today and tomorrow suddenly I ghost you. Like I've never done that. This past Tuesday, I had lunch with my friend who we've been friends for 35 years. Right? Like, that's really important to me. And so I'm not suddenly going to abandon all of the things that I've been trying to help make happen. But when I see that something like, if I can't make a situation better, then I just have to move on, right? And when I see people like Joey and like Ryan make significant contributions that are like, we could never afford to pay for the services that they've put in, right? Like, if you wanted to hire somebody to make the website that Ryan did, it would cost you what, at least tens of thousands, at least, right? And so when I see something like that go to waste, first of all, I try to make sure that it doesn't as best as I can. But like I'm not going to put more resources into a sinking ship, right? And frankly, with TLC, if Paul doesn't take responsibility, which he refuses to, like, I don't see it going anywhere.
But that gets back, I think, somewhat to the clearinghouse idea, in that, and I see many competent people who have skills in various capacities, who have come into this space or been at the dawn of the space and have gone on and are doing their own thing. So I'm sure there are a number of people who will go on in their lives outside of TLC to create artistic endeavors, corporate endeavors, incorporate having a company, whatever it might be, who are directly inspired by either by all the above, Peterson, Peugeot, PVK, Vervaeke. And that's fine as I see it. So it's the, I think the amphibious nature of this space, like those for whom it is time to grow legs and start walking on land, I think that's fine, right? It's why is that a problem?
Did you listen to the live stream this morning?
Which one? Sorry, your California time, the PVK. I got I think I probably made it about halfway through so far. I'll finish it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't get up to the opening it up where you got on, and I did see you went on, but yeah.
So I wasn't going to talk about necessarily my contribution, but a major point which they were talking about was continuity. And Kel Zeldin keeps on saying, like, there hasn't been a generational handoff, right? And frankly, this is part of my supposed, like, I didn't come up with the term Protestant to describe the problems here, but the fact is the problem is Protestantism. And by Protestantism, we mean those things that are uniquely Protestant still, not all of the many things that all of us have become Protestant in terms of the Reformation. But like generational handoff, right? Going from one generation to the next, like actually having things go one after the other, right? That's a problem that, like, I want to see this place as a clearinghouse to be something that actually can go from, like, that it's lasting, that it, in Vervaeke's sense, it'll still be here even when I'm not. And that is a huge problem, I think. And that was a lot of what was discussed in the live stream this morning, right? How do we actually go from, okay, this is something we've had, right? And we're going to contribute it forward, and it's going to remain after Jacob's no longer here. And unfortunately, the manner in which it's operating is incredibly like Protestant churches. I remember the first time I visited Paul's church, I asked him where all the children were, and he said, well, this is the natural life cycle
I have
of the church.
eaten them. I am the devouring father with my giant beard.
He said this is the natural life cycle of a church. And like, that just floored me. I have never heard of a natural life cycle of a synagogue.
Yeah. But the problem is I think of TLC much more as a fraternity rather than a church. And I've been in both, and it's much more like a fraternity than a church.
Let me see what okay. Yeah, Andre, no problem with your mic.
Awesome.
The um the thing is, yeah, it's you guys have this really weird thing where like you keep on saying it's not a church, it's not a church, it's not a church, and then we're Christian, we're Christian, we're Christian, and like it's all over the like. I hear both things a lot, right? Now, obviously, this isn't my synagogue, right? Because we don't have services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at least my Discord is a Jewish Discord server. My channel is a Jewish YouTube channel. And, you know, I hope everything that I do exudes a commitment to Judaism, right? So whether or not you want to call it a church or not, the question becomes, is it modeled like the church is, right? And is it a model that's built to live and be living and continue? And frankly, never having been in a fraternity, I'm not sure a fraternity is the best thing in the world.
I can tell you that at its best, fraternities grow boys into men. That's what they do at their best.
That's good. And if we're helping people do that, I think that's good. I have to say, it makes me think, why isn't this more intergenerational, right? Like this idea that, okay, once you've kind of become a man, you go away and you never like it seems like another Protestant thing to me, of not having intergenerational like mentorship, like you mentioned. Like I don't see why when you get married and start having children, you should be less of a integral part of the community that I'm making.
Yeah, it's valid. It all comes down to time commitments, priorities, hierarchies of attention, all those factors.
Definitely time priorities. Look, there's a reason why I don't have kids and I'm not married and I can do this, right? At the same time, I think my job, as much as anything, is to point the young men here to men who actually are married with kids, jobs, right? And to have the like, this is one of my main disagreements with Luke. Luke says the way you gain status in this community. Oh wow, we get Andre. Yes, long time no see. How are you, my dear friend?
Yeah, not doing too bad. How about yourself?
How are things in London?
Things are cold, super cold.
Let me just finish the point, and we'll talk. But the thing with my disagreement with Luke is, he says, why do we? By the way, Yon God is also in London, so you guys should meet up.
Thanks for that. I got something to add to my file.
Luke says, like, you gain status in this little corner by the amount of time you spend. There's plenty of people who are way too busy, like Sam Titteman, right? He's on his fourth kid. God bless them all. and he's very busy, and he's on the school board, and he's starting a church, and he's very involved in a lot of different things. Or Sartori with all of his kids. Like, if we don't have a structure which allows those men who are busy with real life, yes, starting a church. He's a Unitarian. Andre is Eastern Orthodox. If we don't have a structure which allows those resources of these wonderful men who are living nice Christian lives to actually act as mentors, I think we're failing miserably. Andre, what do you want to say? You never come on.
I just wanted to say hi. That was all. I was watching the stream, like a little bit of the stream with you guys in PVK, and then I was just trying to make Andrew laugh the entire time. I just wanted to see if I could make him look crazy on the stream. So that was all I wanted to do.
I don't need your help.
Yeah, he does that all by himself. Yeah, that's not yeah, not a thing.
Yeah, dude, I never know what's going on in their streams.
You look like you do. I was like, oh wow, he's really locked in right now. and then I asked in the chat, what is this about? And he was like, I have no idea. I was like, okay, cool. Not just me. Is there a particular subject that we're talking about, or because I'm happy to.
Not particularly, but Neil has rarely comes on. You also rarely come on, and he's there. There were particular topics he wanted to address, so that's mostly what we're doing.
Yeah, sweet.
No, we're good. I got through my Jacob file.
Okay. Now, could I ask my question, Jacob?
Sure. What's your question?
So, do you know who a fellow named John Baudrillard is?
No.
So Baudrillard had this idea that basically we live because of technology in what he called the simulacra, whereby
Oh yes. Local distance talks about him. Post-nominalist. Yes. What about him?
So basically, I was just tying this into like your discussion about streams, and because like in my opinion, the internet has made conversation a big simulacra where people don't have real conversations. It's all sort of simulated due to the pressures and influence of like online culture.
It goes back to Marx's idea of alienation, and I think Marx was just really bad at human psychology. Human beings, like where there's the one guy at the party and he's standing by himself and everybody else is dancing. You know that famous meme? Like that's a normal thing for a family to, for a human being to feel, right? That happens in real life all the time. And it's not a result of industrialization. It's not a result of the internet. I'm sure the internet does make it worse, and industrialization has helped make it more real. I think part of it is actually living in cities. That has a lot to do. Definitely, I think being other people, and there, which is how Jordan Peterson defines sanity. I don't know how much I droided right there, but
A bit. We got the message though.
Yeah, like you want to live in harmony with the people around you and your future self, and if you are not doing that, you are going to feel really shitty.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Luddite or anything. I'm pro technology. I was just bringing up the idea that like the modern technological access has led to a fake reality that many people inhabit.
I am very proud of you for realizing that that question was very tangential to the discussion we were having, and stopping yourself from asking it. That shows remarkable growth on your part, Kirk. Good job.
Sorry, just family issues.
Somebody's like, well, I have no idea who it was, but somebody was like, yeah. Andre Jones. How are things down under? You haven't said anything.
Warm.
Warm.
It's the midst of summer.
Ha. You are the polar opposite of the other Andre, the two Andres. And
I'm
congratulations on starting your new classes on Monday. I won't say
Thank
anymore.
Yeah, it's ironically the thing I'm studying is I think I shouldn't mention.
It's fine.
Yeah,
so
but
now
we
I don't
had
know how to distinguish between the two. I'll call you Dre, and I'll call you AJ. Does that work? Yeah.
yeah.
So Dre, did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
Well, not particularly, but just bouncing off what Kirk said a second ago. Would you classify technology then as like a Yetzer Hara?
No, I wouldn't. And this is one of the things I dislike about Pajot. He talks about Techne in negatively. I think that technology is of the world, and in that sense, something that we should not necessarily like. I certainly don't like what do they call the people who want to like be uploaded into the matrix?
Transhumanists.
Transhumanists, right? Like I think technology, like anything else, can be turned into an idol. One of the biggest things that I think we have a problem with nowadays is the iconoclasts see things that become an idol and want to destroy it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's like people made it into an idol because it was valuable, and you want to destroy it as opposed to place it in its proper context in service of God. And that's bad.
So, in that sense, you could say, so you're saying that technology has its proper place, but it can be taken to the point of idolatry. So would you say that people like Sam Altman and these guys, would you call them idolaters?
Definitely. I mean, they don't believe in God at all. Like all of them are atheists.
Yeah, true,
right?
True.
And they're looking for a God, and their God, who's that guy who recently was in the news because like he does all these crazy things like
Brian Johnson, right?
I guess like he's
the one who's trying to extend his life.
Yeah, and by getting blood transfusions from his 17-year-old.
Yeah,
like,
that was crazy.
I
saw that on Netflix.
Like, what is wrong with you, right? It's like, but it's like they have no orientation, no religious orientation, so they're like, there's nothing worse than a new religion. There is nothing worse than a new religion.
I'd agree. Yeah, no, I'd agree. It depends which viewpoint I'm standing from in that. If I try and put my feet into the Jewish shoes, then I'm like, you're talking about us. If I put my feet into the Christian shoes, then we're talking about the Muslims. But then I guess if I put my feet into the Egyptian shoes, they're talking about Jews. So it's like, yeah, I get what you're trying to say, right? So I'm going to step out of the Christian part for a second.
there's a reason why Abraham is the father of all nations, right?
Mhm.
Because he was the one who brought monotheism back into the world.
No, he got it from Enoch.
Well, Noah as well.
You gotta study your scripture, man. Come on.
He said back into the world.
I did say back into the world, right? Because Adam obviously, like, it wasn't until Enos, Enos, not Enoch, that we believe idolatry came into the world. But that's a whole other discussion.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yon God. So on my Discord, there is a guy who is a follower of Horus. We call him Herb. I actually got to meet him.
Mhm.
He has literally built an Egyptian temple on his property. And he has acolytes and people come to his weird stuff, like literal idolatry.
I love how he has to kind of take some of the stuff from like church, a little bit of stuff from here. It's just this
Yeah.
whole like reconstructionist pagan thing. Like, I just think it's a bit cringe.
Do you think it was chill of me to like send him to a Coptic church?
That is so
Sure, why
chill.
not?
I actually do think that's chill personally.
I mean, he
'Cause,
took all the Pharaonic stuff.
Well, that's the thing. Like, don't they still sing some of the melodies that they sung to Pharaoh in that?
Yeah.
I mean, but the only thing he's going to do is he's going to be like, huh, let me take this back and make it idolatrous again. So how chill is that? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's really a large part of the question, like with my channel, right? Like in teaching Christians, like Christians inevitably, everything I say are like, that proves Jesus is the Messiah.
Well, not everything. I mean, if you say the Messiah hasn't come yet, then we're not going to be like, that proves Jesus. Like, we're not going to say that. I mean, there are certain things that we'll find in your history and our history, and they almost complement each other. I think, like, for instance, when we look in the Talmud, it says that like Christians or pagans line up. Well, it says pagans, but it means Christians line up to like go in front of the vain things, right? So there's writings that talk about Christians doing certain practices, and then as an Eastern Orthodox Christian, I could be like, oh, we still do that. So there is value in looking at the Jewish history, and then there'll be things in our history that you can read and be like, oh, we still do that. So it kind of, there's like this mutual validation of our own traditions by learning about
Yeah,
each
but
other.
ultimately the question becomes like, when you're, so Martin Luther famously learned a lot about Judaism from from a Jew, and then took it, and that's how he wrote The Jews and Their Lies, right? And like this type of thing, like on Twitter, it has gotten to the point where I see people saying shit about the Talmud that I don't even bother correcting, because it's like, I'm not even gonna bother. Right?
That is one thing about reading the Talmud, is that now even I realize the stuff
How
that
ridiculous.
Roscoe was. And then it's like, oh, and then when people use that stuff, I'm like, oh, but wait, you're not using it in the right way. Like, so now I feel stupid on their behalf and my own behalf as well. So I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
so I'm not going to use the Talmud like that anymore, so.
When you have a tiny, like even a tiny, like, I'm not some sort of Talmudic scholar. Like, actual Talmudic scholars look at the stupid shit these people say, and it's like, oh my god, you have no effing clue what you're talking about. It's not even wrong, right? You've heard of that, like something being so bad it's not even wrong, right? And like you see shit like that, and I mean the question becomes like, this was my first discussion with Father Stephen. Like, Father Stephen apparently went to an Orthodox synagogue and asked if he could come to the Daf Yomi class, which is the daily Talmud class. Andrew, what is that noise?
That's my garage.
And the rabbi said no, right? You know, because like the quintessential idea is, oh, like you teach Talmud to a priest, and so there's certainly a lot of like reticence on our part, like to be
Well,
like,
you think we're going to kill you
yeah,
all the time.
yeah,
So, like, that's making life tough, especially when there's so. On average, because people are so wrong about the Talmud, most people do want to kill you, which sucks. But at the same time, what you do with Father Joseph is breaking down some of those barriers and making us not want to do that. We go, oh, that's what you're saying, and then we go, okay, fine, we'll learn a bit. Maybe we can go backwards, look, and we can start talking again. And
well, it would be like, so this is the funny thing. Rashi apparently would answer questions about the Talmud to the local monastery, and Rashi, I believe, lost grandkids in this in the Crusades. Like literally lost people in the Crusades, right? He definitely, his life was affected. So yeah, let me see if I can get CW to come on because he's texting me.
well, I mean, yeah, I mean, the Crusades weren't really amazing for anybody. I mean, the Fourth Crusade, it was bad, right? So, but again, if the Muslims had just stayed where they were supposed to be instead of encroaching slowly, then maybe they wouldn't have to do that, right?
Well, I mean, you are Eastern Orthodox after all, but
I'm also Punjabi, so when I think about Muslims encroaching, I'm like, there's a border, and you guys sometimes cross that too, as well, and so I'm like, I have double the annoyance against it, maybe even triple, because then the Greeks and the I got it's everywhere I look,
I will say though, I think Christianity and Islam each would have a much stronger case if the other one wasn't there. It's the two of them which show that God really was, where God is sending his truth is Judaism. Like without Islam and Christianity, have you read the Kuzari?
I have read. Is this the one where he asks a Jewish man, a Muslim, and a Christian about their origin stories, and then the Jewish man goes, "Well, all of Israel saw our prophecy, but only the Christians." It was, I know about this story. Yeah.
Yeah, I figured the Kuzari seems like your type of thing. Okay, in half an hour, I am closing this down because Mark Lefebvre does his stream every Friday at 4 p.m. my time. So
On your channel?
navigating patterns.
Okay, I'm not familiar with this.
Well, I mean, you spend a lot of time with Father Eric and Mark, so
Okay, I'll check it out. It's called Navigating Patterns.
yes.
Okay, and what does Mark generally talk about there?
The intimacy crisis a lot.
Okay, so perhaps I'll get some value out of it as a younger person.
There's Marcus, there's Sandy. So many people. He monologues about how you are a Muppet, Kirk. Yeah, he has.
I think Mark is even less accommodating than Jacob.
This is why we like him.
No, that's why it might be why you like him. I don't think most of TLC.
Gage, my man.
Ooh.
It's been a long time.
You don't think most of TLC doesn't like Mark?
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason we're not. I am no longer officially part of the TLC anymore. I think Jordan Peterson sphere. I actually just joined the Peterson Academy Discord yesterday. Not sure how active I'm going to be. I don't think it's the official Discord, but it was a Discord I found, and now their classes have final exams, so you can actually finish a course. So we'll see. We'll see what I.
We've got classes.
Yeah, Peterson Academy.
Yeah, the one that was launched a while ago. I was conflating with Peterson Sphere thing. I think Mark was also doing.
Yeah, I mean the classes, they're all supposed to be graduate seminar types. I didn't like the testing system. I still don't like the testing system. The final exam at least isn't AI generated, so it's not horrible. And I didn't want to take the class and then have to take it again in order to pass whatever the testing system they come up with. If this is their testing system, I'm going to be nonplussed, because the testing system, like, supposedly they want you to be able to graduate, but I don't know. They haven't thought this through, which bothers me.
$600 a year.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. There's
well, that's US money as well.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten enough out of Peterson that I was willing to pay it. So, yeah,
it's almost $1,000 in my money.
It is. Yeah, it's expensive, and I mean, I definitely. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily re-up next year. In fact, I should probably turn off my auto subscription, so that I don't end up accidentally. Oh, well, it's not exactly 600 for me. It's less. But yeah, I pre-enrolled. If I cancel, what happens?
It seems like there's a broad range of subjects covered.
There is, but what it's not is like able to actually help you finish. Like, what a university does is assess your level and bring you up to a certain amount of knowledge. It doesn't do that. Yeah. Marcus says, if I started an online university and charged $500, would you go to that instead of Peterson? Probably not. Marcus.
I would also say, like, what at least the role of pedagogy in academia, as it should be, not as it is currently, is not just teaching you theory and like raw information, but like teaching you how to think on how to think, like teaching you how to learn the things that you don't know. And I don't know if critical thinking is the right term for it, but
well, just, I mean, learning how to research, learning how to like there's a certain amount of basic skills that hopefully everyone who gets a bachelor's degree will have, and I don't see how Peterson Academy is set up to in any way validate whether or not a person already has those skills or gains those skills through their involvement with Peterson Academy.
Yeah.
By the way, I think that part about Christians lining up in rabbinic literature, I think that was from like Maimonides somewhere.
Yeah,
So,
I did not know what you were referencing, but the Talmud is large enough that I didn't
probably in
know.
there.
Yeah, it could be in there somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah, dude, I saw that like numbering system that you explained for,
Oh, the
this fits in the
Jerusalem
Mishnah,
Talmud.
this fits in the Jerusalem Talmud, and this fits in the.
Yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't even find something that like cross references them. The thing is, by the time somebody like a rabbi is studying the Jerusalem Talmud, they know the Mishnah well enough that like they can find something in the Jerusalem Talmud just by which Mishnah it's near, right? Like a rabbi who knows the entirety of the Talmud quite likely pretty much has the entirety of the Mishnah memorized. Like is very very familiar with the Mishnah, right? So yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't say Peterson Academy is a fraud, but Peterson Academy, what it offers is lectures that are very interesting by generally very good teachers, which I mean it's high quality content. I'm not sure it's $600 a year quality content. Yeah. How different is it from Trump University in terms of grift level?
Significantly.
Yeah. What bothered me about Trump University was it was advertised to poor people who were the people who were least likely to actually gain anything from Trump University. Max says, throughout school, several teachers told me the point of their class was to demonstrate my learning skills. However, they never taught me how to learn. Yeah. Yeah. I have to get out of my master's degree program and finish it. I have to finish it. And it's so hard to actually sit down and write all of these stupid papers.
Yeah, meta education is definitely lacking. I mean, in England they used to have the trivium system, which I admire. I think that
What
is
is that?
so the trivium is grammar, logic, rhetoric.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically taught in classics, and let's say in like Eton and these really upper class schools, they will still learn grammar, logic, and rhetoric. So they learn how to form the mind before ever even touching a subject. You know, the basics of building an argument, debating, and then they start doing like mathematics and stuff like that, which is, I think that they lowered the standards. Well, I think when they started introducing like the universities and saying we've got these new scientific techniques of how to learn and stuff like that, and then what's ended up happening is I think they're going to end up going backwards and coming full circle and realizing, oh, that system was actually way better. thinking about thinking is always better than just going straight into something. It's like, how can you don't even know how to think. Why should we even give you a book? You know, that's how I feel about it sometimes. But
Yeah, the yeshiva system. So there's in New York, there's a big push because, like, there are a lot of ultra Orthodox Jews in New York, and in the yeshiva system, the boys learn some English, some math, and mostly learn a lot of Talmud, right? And so, especially a lot of people who grew up in that system, left the system, went on to a university, etc., have a lot of complaints about that system, right? And the funny thing is, they have an idealized version of what it's like to have, like, I went through the public school system, and like my science classes were, and I had some very good teachers, although I had some really, really bad teachers, but I went to some of the best schools in Los Angeles. And like, if a child is actually learning Talmud, there's plenty of them that afterwards end up going to college, getting PhDs, etc., because they're being taught critical thinking skills, as in to question things, as to try to view things from different perspectives, and like, just learning another language really does give you more perspective on things. And it doesn't matter what the other language is. That's why. And so you guys know the Collinses, Malcolm and Simone, like their school, they've dropped in their school, they've dropped any foreign language because they're like, oh, technology will take care of that. Like, no.
and a child's brain is more plastic, so if you just say, oh, we'll just leave it to them to learn later, it's not as easy, right? So you want to get them when they're very young, because then they can learn 2, 3, 4 languages at the same time, and it's easy for them. You know,
I actually think Montessori does the Montessori method of just like letting a child follow their interests, like, pretty much should work, right? Let the child follow their interests within guidelines. Like, obviously, don't be a permissive parent, but yeah,
So be authoritative, not authoritarian.
yeah, or permissive.
I'm not a parent, but yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, fair enough.
Soon.
Are most people on TLC
God willing.
parents?
God willing. We hope.
Definitely not most people, and certainly not the people who are most active. But a lot of them are very young, like Andre. How old are you, Andre? Or
Well, I'm not very young anymore. I'm 29 now, so that's not very young.
yeah, you should have gotten married 11 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, by Indian standards, I'm basically a great granddad at this point. So, you know.
So you're saying I should have gotten married 17 years ago.
Yes, I am definitely saying that.
And I should get married next year.
Yes. Gandhi got married when he was 14, I believe.
Yeah, that
Gandhi
kind of
was
stuff
kind
happens.
of a piece of shit.
This is very
True.
true.
Very true.
Yeah.
The guy let his children starve. So there is that.
Oh, I didn't know about his children.
Yeah, I think he was he was just a horrible father, and then also
He was
he
a
was a
horrible
communist.
person in a lot of ways. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
Indians, because of the way that they've learned their reform versions of Hinduism, whatever that means, they think that communism is the closest thing to Hinduism. So
So
it's horrible.
this is the biggest complaint I have against Gandhi. I mean, yes, he was a child molester. He was a horrible person in general in many ways. He was racist. He was very sexist. He treated his wife horribly. Like, he was generally a really horrible person. And he achieved basically nothing in life other than making the apartheid system in South Africa worse. But the what he did with like homespun and the idea of Indian independence is make billions of people suffer the worst poverty for decades. And it wasn't until they completely gave up on his ideas in the 80s and 90s that India has started to become a developing nation. Yeah.
I mean, I went to India like in November last year, and I obviously had been watching all the things on the internet. So you begin to, even though I'm Indian, I begin to have this really like negative view. I go there, I go to Bangalore, I go to Kerala, and it's like it's clean, it doesn't smell, there's no street
Kerala,
food,
yeah.
and I'm enjoying myself. Like there's really high tech places, and there's places where I'm like, this is actually as good as, if not better, than the West. And I'm like, it kind of breaks your brain a little bit because you're like, oh, this is not what I'm used to. Like it's crazy. So
Depends where you go. Yeah, but I mean,
Bangalore in particular.
India has definitely. So there was a time when I got a permission from some companies to distribute their games in India, and I was thinking about doing that. So I was actually going to get Magic the Gathering and D&D and stuff to India, and I started investigating it, and the big problem was moving inventory across India, because like basically anytime you're passing through a jurisdiction, there's like internal customs, and it's very corrupt. And like when they see you're trying to move anything, they want a piece of it. And it was like, well, how do I get things from one city to another? And I started looking at that, and it was like, yeah, you kind of don't.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what I saw, the police there didn't look very nice, and I was told by my family, listen, they're going to be quite mean to you, so just be ready, ready for that. And they may even like try and intimidate you a little bit to try, especially because you're from the West. And I was like, oh, okay. And I don't speak Hindi because like the state that I'm from, nobody speaks Hindi there, and I don't even speak Punjabi at home anyway. And so they're speaking to me in Hindi. I look like I should be able to speak Hindi really well, and I'm going, huh? and that's just annoying them even more. So, yeah, I mean, in India, they've got so much bureaucracy because they think from the colonial times that's the way you do stuff. Everything needs stamping every 5 meters. You know, it's just bloated. The system's bloated, and
India
logical
may
people.
have measured by amount of black money in European banks. India is the most corrupt country in the world.
Yeah, I can imagine that's true.
Yeah, and I've heard of places in India that have over 100% income tax because they figure like you're gonna be holding back anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That place is just godless, really. I mean, there's some places that are really nice. Like if you go into the south, there's some really beautiful places, and they're not completely corrupted. But yeah, that place is just it's a godless hellhole with most of it. But you get some pockets here and there. I mean, I don't think God's completely forsaken them, but I hope he hasn't.
I am sure God has not completely forsaken anybody, but yeah,
Well, ironically, they're polytheists. We've got too many gods.
Yeah, none of them listen.
Hey, better than being an atheist. Better than being an atheist.
I really think about like Elijah when he says, "Where's your God? Is he on a journey?" And I think that would work so well in India. If you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would work really well in India.
Well,
having a little
you
bit
know
of
that's a euphemism for.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it would work well in India.
Yeah.
I mean, if they say if he's on the toilet, maybe we should start using one as well. So
I was very surprised to find out what a Shiva lingam is.
oh yeah.
With the Shimalingam.
It is a large phallus that is prominently displayed in Hindu temples.
And they wash it with milk as well, so you can imagine what's
Coconut
going
milk,
on.
yeah.
So
yeah, there were so there's a Hindu temple in Malibu, which is one of the largest. I think it used to be the largest Hindu temple in the Western Hemisphere, and it's they filmed there a lot because it's a great scene, right? So in I think Beverly Hills Ninja, it was the bad guys dojo or whatever, right? And and yeah, so they have signs all over the place designated coconut breaking areas and no coconut breaking, because coconut breaking is apparently a huge thing there. Yeah.
India's an interesting place.
yeah, I always found it weird. Like Indians, like even ones who are Sikhs, right? They will always place, and this is some form of magic, I think. Chili, a lemon, a coconut, and some sort of amulet at the front of their house. And I always thought, like, how would a chili, lemon, and a coconut scare off a demon? Like, what's that going to do to a demon?
The funny thing is, like, chili is a New World thing. So, which is like this always gets me. Like, so chilies, potatoes, and tomatoes are New World things, right? So, like, imagine Italian cooking without any tomatoes, right? Imagine like Indian food without any chilies whatsoever, right? Like,
Cultural appropriation kicks ass.
Well, it's like that song goes, put the lime in the coconut and drink it all up.
Shake it all about, yeah.
I said, doctor.
We have some sort of troll in the chat, I see.
yeah, yeah, which is why
Slap.
I didn't move him up. It's obvious. I think he's the same guy that last time kept on asking us if we wanted to see his feet or not.
Well,
Yeah,
he
maybe.
sounds like he's from England because he's just said that. Like, there's a meme in there that's from England, so I don't know.
What meme?
The monkey on the car one.
No clue.
There's a video of a kid when his parents say monkey on the car, he says F off to them, but he says the word. So it's a really weird English video. I don't know how to explain it. But it sounds like he's from England or something, because that's an English thing.
No idea. When I was a kid, so basically all videos were contraband. It was after the Muslim Revolution in Iran. And so we had a lot of Benny Hill and a lot of Indian movies because we didn't know English. And the thing with Benny Hill is you could have a lot of the skits which were completely like no language. So I remember Benny Hill from being a child in Iran. Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
you
it's like,
understand
what-
Indian movies? Oh, sorry. You go ahead now.
I was going to say it's one of those shows. It's like it translates past like language barriers. Like it's why they show Mr. Bean on trans international flights so much, because there's barely any English in it, and everyone can sort of watch it. And most of the like sounds in it are just like, and just like Rowan Atkinson like grunting or like doing affectations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they had subtitles, but I was a little kid, so I couldn't read them. So, yeah.
With the Indian movies, could you like understand a lot of it because there's so much Persian influence? Or?
You know, I certainly not as a kid. There's to some extent, like especially with Punjabi is like it's a lot closer to Farsi than I think modern Hindi is. But there's a lot of, especially like both of them have a lot of Arabic mixed in as well, right? So I think if you know what you're doing, you certainly would see like a lot more than most people do. Yeah. I am putting the link to Mark's stream, which is starting in 5 minutes.
What's this channel's name again?
Navigating
Buttons.
Yeah. There's the link.
Dresses up as a pirate and navigates the waters of Plato and hating on Hegel.
I
Yeah.
hate Hegel. Kinda.
Seeing the world, filters and discernment. Your worldview shapes everything. So apparently that is his topic of conversation today.
Yeah. I mean, I presume. Well, can I just say something a little bit tangential?
Sure.
I presume you're not a big fan of Hegel.
I am. Well, I mean, I don't. I think he was a Gnostic. That's a problem.
Gnostic. We should meet these people. We should meet these Gnostics, man. That way we can call everyone Gnostic and we can be like, I met them. You're exactly like them.
You keep on like thinking the Mandaeans are the only Gnostics who are left, and that's so not true.
Yeah.
There are Gnostics all over the world.
Yeah,
James
but they're
Lin-
posers. Like, these are the oldest Gnostics.
Maybe.
But
Yeah, but
most
that's like
Gnostics are like
semantics.
individual people, like who are just crazy and schizo. But there's like an actual group, you know? Like, where are the actual groups apart from the Mandaeans?
Exactly.
The Donme, the Druze, the Alawites.
The Druze are
considered
like,
Gnostic?
what, 600? No, 200 years old. The Alawites are, what? I don't know.
The Yazidis.
700.
The
Yazidis
Freemasons
were
are
pagans.
Gnostic, yeah. These
They're
are
Gnostics?
pagans.
I thought
They
they were
are.
pagans. I thought they were
Yeah.
straight pagans.
They straight up are. Yeah,
Yon God says Freemasons are Gnostic.
they are. I think deism, like that kind of stuff, is pretty.
Do they have like a continuous line of Gnosticism?
Well, the Mormons got their Gnosticism from the Freemasons, and the Freemasons got their Gnosticism, like their Gnosticism is like 600 years old, and
Where did
they
the
got
Freemasons
it
get their
from
Gnosticism?
the people from the Crusades. So, like, yeah,
But I was listening to Rabbi Breitowitz, and he was saying potentially that the Freemasons and the Knights in the Crusades were hanging around with some rabbis. So Rabbi Breitowitz is a very, I mean,
where
he's
did he
respected.
say that?
I will get you the clip. I will. I've been listening to a lot of Rabbi Breitowitz.
Apparently,
I find him.
more than
I like him.
I
I think
like
he's
him.
fun.
It's your guys' fault. It's your guys' fault.
I mean, he said the same thing with Muhammad. He said Muhammad was hanging around with a bunch of rabbis, and he wanted to convert, and then they were like, no, because he did something wrong. And then he said, well, I'll make my own thing. So I mean, it's you guys that did it.
Well, yeah, all religion goes back to Judaism, dude. Yeah, like all connection to God is through Israel. You did not know this?
No, I know this, but I'm just saying, you know, you
know
helped.
more Rabbi Breitowitz than I do. I actually got to meet Rabbi Breitowitz, though.
I'm jealous.
Yeah.
I'm
You
jealous.
did?
Yeah, 25 years ago.
Oh, and Orsameach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's an amazingly nice guy.
I'd like to meet him, but I don't think you would like to meet me.
Oh no! Have you seen like the videos where people are looking for Orthodox rabbis and he answers? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I saw
there's
the one in Israel with that. What's the guy who does like the questions? Corey something.
Yeah, Corey Barker or something.
Yeah, he goes to all the different groups, and then he's like, "I want an educated rabbi," and then he ends up with Rabbi Breitowitz. So
and Rabbi Breitowitz did a great job.
Well, from what I've seen from Rabbi Breitowitz, he does seem to know a lot of Torah, and he does seem to be really good at like knowing how to frame things in the proper way that won't mislead people.
He taught law school in the University of Maryland for many years. Like that was his job before he retired to and moved to Israel.
it's cute the way he picks up a cup as well. He like picks it up with two hands and does that. That's quite
And
endearing. You know?
Constantly, he's got a pen in his hand that he's constantly fidgeting with. Yeah. No, I love that man. Yeah. And he's incredibly nice. If you get his email, which too many people have, he will answer you. Yeah.
Oh.
He still has he's it's an AOL email that he still has, and if you see it, like the handle, it's very, very short with one number 5. So
Is Rabbi Breitowitz Litvish or Hasidic or?
he's Litvish. Yeah, he studied in Gateshead. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm not
He
sure
looks
if he
Hasidic.
studied in Gateshead in London. He may have.
I mean, he talks about the Rebbe a lot, so I don't know if he's.
He talks about every, like he's quite as far as Orthodox Judaism goes. He's very. I mean, he even talks nicely about Avi Weiss, and few people are willing to do that. Avi Weiss is the founder of Open Orthodoxy, but he learned in Litvish yeshivas.
Well, I guess maybe it's the beard, but he kind of looks Hasidic. But I guess the beard is across Hasidic and Litvish community.
Everybody grows a beard. Okay, gentlemen, it is 4:00. I am going to leave you with my goodbye video. Good night. I'm going to use host's prerogative to put the Reverend Parcells to bed because he does need to get up in the morning.
Sorry,
You are
Reverend. Thank
correct.
you.
But before he goes, I have a question. Let's say, God forbid, that I were to burn somebody at the stake for not being a Trinitarian. And I did not repent of that. Is that a salvation issue?
Sometimes Jacob takes
There's a
that devil's
proverb.
advocate thing too
Isn't there
far.
a proverb that says something like "Don't answer a fool according to his folly"?
But there's a proverb that says, answer a fool according to his folly.
There is.
Exactly right. And I'm going to leave it to you guys to determine, which of those was applicable in this situation as I go. So, but anyhow, good.
Thank
it was
you,
good
Reverend.
to, good to
Thank
chat
you.
with you all.
Thank you.
Good night.
The